Welcome to Comic Station, issue number 17 for April 24, 2013. I am Paul Nisi.
And I'm Scott Cates of the Comic Station.
We have a number of new releases, a few follow-ups on some that we did before, and a double whammy in the review section coming up. For the new releases today on issue number 17, we're going to kick off with number 1, Jupiter's Legacy from Image. This one is from Mark Millar. Basically, it opens up. I really like how it opens up, where it's in the 1932, and the color palette itself is really subdued. It's a lot of tans and so forth, and beautifully drawn. And then it starts out with a quest looking for an island. Reminds me a lot of Lost. Looking for a mysterious island. It kind of calls out to them. Only people that the island wants to find them can find it. And you find out it actually makes superheroes. So this expeditionary force comes back, they're now superheroes, and then it jumps from 1932 to 2013, modern day, our world. And the superheroes have since had their children, had children's children, so forth. And you find everything's not all amazing. It's not a mythical world. It's real world. The old guard is kind of disappointed in the children. The children are cynical towards the adults. Children, a lot of the times, at one point they even said, like, all the good villains are gone. So they're really mostly publicity figures at that point, especially the younger children, the ones that aren't caught up in the hero worship of the first heroes. So it's really interesting, the dichotomy in that, and how just because they're superheroes doesn't mean the world is amazing, and the world is in no good shape. There's actually a lot of infighting within the group. Some people are questioning their own, what is their purpose? Are they there to be civil servants, or are they there to lead? So of course you can see some of where it's going, and we've seen this in the past before, some superheroes or even some villains where they think they should lead versus serve. And so you see where some of that might be going, but it's really interesting that it's in today. President Obama is in the presidency. The economy is how it is. They have a news reel in the background. It's really nice. I like the setting. I like the setup, and I like the plot. And it ends with a questionable, whether or not, questionable circumstances of, was a superhero murdered? So what will this kick off? What are they going to do about it? And are some of the slacking going to pick up the pace, or are some of the ones that are in charge going to change their mindset? So it's an interesting story.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. Have not read it yet. Mark Millar, for those of you who don't know, wrote some of the best comic books. He wrote Wanted. Forget about the movie, not the movie, but the books themselves were fantastic. Does mostly creator-owned stuff anymore. Doesn't really write for Marvel or DC. Frank Whiteley, great artist, did a lot of work on Superman, got famous for that. So looking forward to reading that one.
Yeah, Mark Millar is really good. So the next one we actually have is a issue number 1, but we did do a preview of issue number 0 before. From Dark Horse is Amala's Blade. This is from Steve Horton and Michael Dialanas. I have no idea how to pronounce this, so forgive me on that one. But really, I really like the artwork. I thought it was really well done. It's funny, it's cartoonish. I think in issue number 1, they worked out a lot of the pacing a lot better. In the first one, even though it was more action-packed overall, this still has some really good action scenes. It's still really funny. But I think they got the pacing down a little bit better. And we pick back up with Amala. She is the #1 assassin, although she isn't very stealthy. And that has gotten her into a little bit of hot water with her employer. And so there's some plots going back and forth that Amala may not be safe in her employment anymore. So it's really interesting. I'm looking forward to it. As far as, it's really funny. This is all ages, so not everyone, it's not adult, but it is fun. It's a nice read. If you want some younger children, or if you just want a fun read that you don't really have to think about too much, this one's really nice.
Yeah, and that's the type of book that I like to read to get away from everything else. It's almost
it's a good palate cleanser.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's a nice sorbet.
Yeah, you get some of this really high action, really weighty stuff, and then you just want something to clean it out. And she still has the ghost following her. And speaking of the high action, really gory, maybe going through, this is another follow-up. This is Helheim #2, and this one is from OniPress. And as we said, we followed this up before. Cullen Bunn and Joel Jones do a great teamwork on this one. This one, though, opens up with Ricard's father in the foreground, and he's catching up, basically. Ricard, on the first issue, died, and he's brought back as basically a Frankenstein kind of monster by Bera, who Ricard's father doesn't quite trust, and neither do I. And I mean, there is some action scenes, some fight with the wild men, really nice, beautiful, gory scenes. Kind of weird to say those two words together, beautiful and gory. But they do a great job with it. My only issue with the art on this issue, even though I really love the color palette and everything, my only issue, though, is some of the proportions when in the fight. At one point, his hand's so big, he's basically crushing the guy's skull, and he's huge, he's towering over everyone else, and then he gets face to face with the leader, and like the heads are the same size, and the proportion doesn't quite hold up in that one fight scene, just mainly because there's so many people going back and forth. But otherwise, beautiful, really well done. The storyline, even though it takes less of an action, it takes more of a plot and mystery point of view this time, and the action is sandwiched between more plot, more story. And we actually get our first look at Groa, who is the witch of this world, and she's not all she seems. And you start questioning things, and you can see in Ricard, he starts questioning things. It's also really important to note for those questions that throughout the book, he's called a monster. Now, he's the hero of the book, but he's also the monster of the book. So, I thought that was nice.
Well, I haven't read the second one. I really like the first one. Anything that mixes Vikings and magic and, all that type of stuff, it generally makes for a good read. Cullen Bunn's been wonderful on that.
Yeah, it's if you're looking for a Viking epic, that's the comic for you. That is an amazing Viking epic right now. Alright, and the last one, how could we not follow up on East of West #2 from Image? Again, amazing. I really like this. Gorgeous artwork, as always. There's some beautiful scenes. And it opens up with, as you can figure out if you read the first issue, if you haven't read it yet, I suggest you go pick it up. Maybe skip ahead on this preview here. But the Horsemen are basically looking for a new replacement for the president after having killed him, and they are looking for a puppet president. So they're looking for a believer in the word. So it's really cool, beautiful scenes of searching for this puppet, gory. They run through a whole line of secession. I don't know how anyone doesn't realize half the Senate's gone, but so it's really nice. The plot, even though there's really no action in this issue. And for those of you that always need to have action, you might be disappointed in this. But the story in here is so good. It's so gripping that I really did not mind that there was no action. I thought it was really well done. There are plots within plots. There are characters, and I like the characters in this. There's actually one that even kind of gets the upper hand on Death. So,
nice.
I mean, it's got to be pretty cool to do that. And I just really like it. I think it really holds up the pace and really holds what the first issue got. So, if you like the first issue, you should pick up the second issue.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to reading this. This has been my favorite comic book that has come out, and it was well done. I have looked at some of the pages. Artwork is fantastic, and I don't know how you can't read this and enjoy it. I really don't. This is one of the few comics that really, if you read comic books, you really should be reading this.
Everyone I talked to, I haven't heard a bad thing about it. Maybe not as enthusiastic as some of us, but nothing bad. And everyone at least liked East of West #1. So everyone should really enjoy #2. Alright. Especially, I really like the characterization in this. Death is just a badass.
Gotta like the Four Horsemen in any respect.
So good. And the other characters, they have a nice little moment around a campfire. Alright, coming up is our double whammy of a review, where we go over 2 in the same story arc. For the reviews for April 24, 2013, we're going to kick off. We have Unleashed #1 and Vampires the Eternal #1. Both are from Zenescope, and Unleashed #1 is the head title, the main storyline of the new Unleashed event in the Grimm Fairy Tales series from Zenescope. Anyone familiar with the Grimm Fairy Tales series will know that Zenescope takes ancient fairy tales and modernizes them and makes them in the human world and updates them and gives the characters a lot more oomph. But they also have some beautiful artwork. Unleashed is the new world-encompassing event. There's been a few in the past, and this is one of their new ones now. And basically, the creature known as the Being, he just gets a simple name like that, comes in and kicks things off in an epic manner with literally fighting the gods. Not only does he fight the gods, he actually ends up killing 1 or 2. And ends up using the god's essence to release creatures from the Shadowlands. These creatures are not just regular creatures, though. They are all the classical monsters. The werewolves, demons, and of course vampires. That is where Vampires the Eternal comes in as the #1 issue, with following the storyline of Samira, the Queen of the Vampires, as she is rebuilding her empire and kind of gathering up her forces. And even though a majority of the vampires have been locked in the Shadowlands, some of them did not, and she's not a big fan of some of them that have gone a little soft. And she really proves her killer instinct in the first few pages, and then she gets a little bit of background story of how she came to become a vampire, and it ends up with her reuniting with some of the first vampires that she knew. So as far as Vampires the Eternal #1, I thought it was really nice. It's a good self-contained series. You don't really need to read Unleashed #1 to get into it and enjoy it, but it really does help, especially at some points where they're in this Antarctic basically castle, and it really fills in the gaps, but it's not necessary. And I do like that the background story is there, although it leaves off at the end, and I really hope they go back and show more of how she became the killer that she is shown to be in the future. The only thing with Vampires the Eternal, there's not too much action. It's kind of slow. It's a little slow paced. I do like the storyline. It's really good. It's a really good thing to say about a series when they can take a character that might have been otherwise overshadowed and make her be able to invest in her as a character. But at the same time, they also didn't put. It's kind of evident that they didn't put their A-team of artwork in here. It's good artwork, but it's not the Zenescope wow that we're used to. Unleashed #1 has that wow. Unleashed continues. He releases all these creatures, werewolves, vampires, so forth, and they all have their crossover titles coming out in the future. But the Being he doesn't care. He's basically telling everyone, stop fighting among each other Just let the creatures do what they want, and if you don't, and you start stepping into out of line and everything, I'll just kill you. He takes on even what used to be the bad guy of the series and puts him in his place. So it's really nice. It's a really good starting point. Anyone that has been looking at the Grimm Fairy Tale series from Zenescope and realized that it's really long-lasting, they have so many crossover titles. I personally really enjoy their Sinbad crossover titles that are self-contained. But any of them that look at these issues and go, you know what, this might be a little too much to get into at such a late point, this Unleashed arc right now is a really good jumping on point. It's self-contained, you really don't need to know too much about the series, and they spell it out pretty well. They introduce new characters, so you don't need to know all the background. You just have to know it's fairy tales, classical monsters, they're smashing it together in the world. You can see the full reviews of both Unleashed #1 and Vampires the Eternal #1 on frontwardsgamer.com. But definitely check it out. Anybody that has been looking at Zenescope and the Grimm Fairy Tales should check this out as a great jumping on point.
All right, and for me, my recommendation this week, it's actually a graphic novel series by J. Michael Straczynski, and that is Superman Earth 1, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Now, both of these books have taken a twist on the Superman origin story, and I will say that it is by far the best Superman origin story I've ever read. Straczynski has done a fantastic job with it. The artwork's tremendous. It moves really well. Now, I've read the Batman Earth 1, which is good, but not as good as the Superman. And hopefully this will continue to come out every 8 or 9 months, because these books have been absolutely phenomenal. Even if you don't like Superman as a character, I think you find he's a much more likable character, because he is fallible, and you can see some of the struggles that he goes through with the way Straczynski's put this together. So do yourself a favor. It's a nice read. It's not an awful long read. It's probably about a good 30-minute read, and it's well worth it, and gives you a little bit of Superman, and Superman for me brings it back to the forefront, especially with the movie coming out, and maybe you can do a little comparison when you go and see the new Superman movie.
Yeah, it definitely seems along the lines of the movie, where he has a little more personal flaws versus being this perfect being. And I really like in one part of this book, they go through a whole vignette basically of different jobs that he tries, and he's good at all of them, and he's looking for his place. And I've always wondered why Superman just went and became a reporter when he could have done so much more, and this shows why. And I think this explains a lot. It's really good for people to learn more about Superman. It makes it more relatable, as you said.
Absolutely, yeah. No, definitely, if you're looking for something that's not going to take up hours of your time.
And the artwork's great.
Yeah, the artwork's fantastic. So get yourself the first copy. You like it, I guarantee you'll buy the second copy.
Yep. All right, and this has been Comic Station issue number 17 for April 24th, 2013. As always, we will be back next week with the highlights of new releases, maybe a review or two again, and more recommendations. Again, let us know what you think, what any of your recommendations. Leave a comment below, tweet at us, my Twitter is Pinisi, and let us know what you want to see. Alright, thank you very much. See you next week.
See you.